My name is Wesley, and my story is a little bit complicated because it actually spans like pretty much my entire life. I've always kind of been really sensitive and had um, issues managing my emotions, and I never really knew that it wasn't normal to do that, for it to be like that. And then on top of that, I was also dealing with, issues of my sexuality and my gender, especially during a time when LGBT Q plus rights were not being talked about, or identities were really being not being talked about. So I didn't have words for my, you know, condition as well as sort of my identities. So it was very hard going through all that. And it also makes it really hard to sort of differentiate between like my mental health journey and my like LGBT identity journey, just because they're so like sort of interconnected because of that. Um, and I think that also really underscores for really anybody how much their daily life is a part of their mental health, because just having that sort of confusion around who I was really didn't sort of just really emphasized or provoked a lot of my like emotional symptoms, and it just added on as like an additional stressor. So it's also really hard to talk about them being so connected to, just because a lot of bigots like to say things like, being LGBT is a mental illness and whatnot, and obviously it's not. But it is definitely like this additional stressor that makes it a lot harder to recover, because you're just so constantly also being like triggered in a way through that. Um, just kind of trying to go through things like school and whatnot while also having this confusion and these identities. You go through a lot of like discrimination and bullying and whatnot, so that makes it a lot um, more difficult. And it also makes it more difficult to be honest with yourself too, because it's not just the fear of rejection that you're fearing, although that is probably the most present. Also underscored with that, you're worrying about things like violence and homelessness and whatnot, about being honest. So which is a huge part of what I feel has helped me in my own recovery, is just, being able to embrace those identities and to understand how how it affects my management of, my mental illnesses. So what I really want to say for LGBTQ plus youth that may be going through something similar is that this is definitely not a hopeless situation. It may be a little bit different um, versus your like cisgender or heterosexual peers that may be going through something similar emotion wise, because you might have to still be closeted in certain like situations, um, whereas I would say always to prioritize your safety, and know that your identities are real and deserving of people who affirm that, and that it's really important, if you don't have that right now, to know that you will in the future, even if you have to wait for it a little bit.